So welcome to Graphic Policy Television. I'm Brett. Joining me is Zack Kaplan to talk Join the Future, a really cool series, 5-ish series came out from AfterShock that is being collected and out January 6th. We're here to talk, and I'm really excited about this because this was one that had some really cool themes to it that I wanted to talk about. You know, originally threw out like written questions. I'm like, it doesn't work as a written thing. It's better to do as talking. And it's a really cool concept. Like it's a futuristic Western that has kind of modernization clashing with traditional life, and there's we got tons to discuss. So I just want to start with the simple question of just like, where did the concept come from? Like, where did you come up with join the future?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of not just science fiction, but thinking about what the future might be like, the near future. And I really got intrigued by the fact that we've seen so many stories with big futuristic cities. And, we've got our Blade Runner style cities, but we never see what that megacity kind of trend has done to the rest of the country or the rest of the world. And so that combined with reading a little bit about what was going on with small towns in America and how I read trends at the time that people were leaving small towns more and more in rural communities, and not related to red state or blue state, but simply, whether you're a small town in California or a small town in Maine or a small town in Florida, that just in general, people were moving to more urbanization areas. And that kind of all combined to say, well, this is an interesting clash of lifestyles and a clash of technology versus kind of not so plugged in and kind of a little more intimate living. And it was interesting also that all that was also very similar to Western themes. So thus formed the kernel of Join the Future.
So the big thing was it was a really interesting kind of spin on that traditional Western genre. Was there any points that you thought about maybe doing something else? Because it easily could have been like a cyberpunk thing. It could have been just like a futuristic dystopian story. Like there's a lot of different directions you could have gone, but it really it's rooted in like that traditional like pacing and storytelling that you come to expect from that genre.
Yeah, I always had this. As soon as I had this premise, I always had this vision of a ranch and giant machines in the background, but this ranch is just kind of operating on their own. And these are simple people who are just trying to live off the land. I mean, I'm almost picturing Skywalkers, on Tatooine, just really, but low tech. And then the clash of the city coming in and saying, we want you to move. And that was the scene that kind of stuck with me in a very, it reminds me of like the Westerns where the railroad's coming through and they tell the rancher, you've got to move. So that premise just was far more interesting to me. And so that turned the city and the megacity and civilization into the antagonist or the protagonist that just wants to be left alone.
There's also something like about eminent domain to it too, right? Like we're seizing your town, we're seizing the land for like the greater good.
Yes, that's a huge fact of. I mean, it's all veiled in these megacities are offering the residents of these rural communities the chance to move, and they'll even give you a free housing and healthcare and a universal basic income because the megacities are in a race with each other. Population is power, which is something I got from just we're seeing this, when we going up against China, that the more people you have, the more advantageous your economic buying power is. So yeah, they're coming in and trying to pressure these citizens to sell their citizenship en masse and come live in the big city. But there is this kind of, we are here and we don't want to sell and we want you to sell, and what underhanded techniques they'll use the city and really the agents of the city. People have asked me, is the city evil? And I don't think that the city is evil. I don't think that anyone in the city who's adopted that utopic lifestyle is evil, but they have made sacrifices and they're ignorant to the pressure that the central antagonist, these lawmen and this agent who have come to this small town, and now they're pressuring this community. I think the most of the people in the city are ignorant to the pressure that's being put on the people of this.
Yeah, I mean, like the way you're describing it even kind of reminds me of like what we're seeing now with consolidation of corporations and the like, hey, we're going to provide you, not thinking of anyone particular, we're going to provide you the digital service directly to your home, but you're going to have to sacrifice all these other things. And really, it's good for you to accept it, where everyone's kind of like, there's tens of thousands of people losing their jobs. There's all this consolidation. Like it's what you just brought up also really reminded me of that. It's something that didn't click when I was originally reading it.
Well, that's something that was really kind of something that was important to me. I actually grew up in a small town, and I used to play in the cornfields, and now I'm raising two young children myself, and we live in a different age, and there's a scene in the comic where she is asking a mentor character that she meets kind of what is so bad about the city. And he kind of brings up the fact that you can't see the stars. Yeah. And to me, this was the perfect metaphor, because you don't know what you're missing because you don't know it's been taken. I think there's so much about technology and consolidation and corporatization and things going digital. There's so many things that we've lost that are small and that were not life or death, but they were things that have been lost that we don't even know to think about anymore, because we've been boiled in the pot. So I think that's interesting. And we've lost the choice, because it was just the concepts about privacy and data and technology, all sorts of things. It's just we don't have that opportunity to make those choices. It's happening. The future is happening to us.
Yeah. How much have you thought through the world? Like, we kind of got some hints at the city. We got obviously these giant machines, thresher machines, whatever you want to call them, world changer things. There's interesting hints here and there with like the underwater scene where you get to see some things hinted at. But like, for the most part, it's really like Clementine's story as she goes on for revenge, and we hints at the rest of the world, but we don't really see the rest of the world. So like, how much did you actually build out, and like, is there kind of like a guide of what else is out there, sort of thing?
I thought a lot about that, and I thought a lot, and I also thought about things that I could have added that didn't make it in, or if we decided to do more, where I might take the story and what the neighboring communities would look like. I think the trader, this mentor character, is very revealing, because you realize that there are other people besides the megacity and the small town. There are people who are living off the land, who are scavenging old technology, who are making their way. And so in that way, I think there are probably, bounty hunters and mercenaries and all sorts of types that you would encounter. But I think for me, one of the most enjoyable ways to do world building is as a backdrop. And so for me, the central story is this young girl, and it is a classic revenge Western story, but she's being tremendously torn apart by this existential battle of ideals of whether she will embrace technology or will she not embrace technology, and how does she define herself as a person. She's now on her own. It's not the way she wanted to be on her own, kind of growing up, but she's now found herself having to find her own way. And so I think rather than have world overwhelm that, I always like to start there and just have the world as the backdrop. It's kind of whether Eclipse or Port of Earth. I think people who have read some of my other work will know that I give a lot of tastes of the world, but I don't like to spend a lot of time. You mentioned like that we're seeing that the megacities are terraforming over small communities and even not so small cities that they basically bought up and ransacked. And so I just wanted hints of that to show that we're seeing parts of civilization just be, you know, eliminated. And I don't know. It was, you know, that was a plot device, but I thought there was something very unsettling to see. It's
I was actually
unsettling.
going to say that. Yeah, like the terraforming scene, like there's the page, and I don't remember if it was a full page that it was given to, but you see the hills and the terraforming machines. There's like 3 or 4 of them or whatever, just doing their thing, and you kind of see the fires and the smoke and the land destroyed. And there's something terrifying about it. And like one, because you knew it was happening, but I don't think we ever got the extent of it. Like you didn't go into detail about it. And then, to just see it out of nowhere, like it turned it there was like a horror aspect to it. It was interesting, as opposed to like if you had let up and given more detail, I don't think it quite would have had that punch.
Yeah, and I think that this is the other thing I love about the execution, because the premise of having a small town and wanting to, no one's living there anymore and it's going to just decay, so let's take it apart and demolish it and replace it with lovely nature. I mean, couldn't we use more nature and more trees and more animals? It sounds fine, but then when you see it happen, there's something very horrific. Yeah, absolutely, about seeing a whole community, people's homes. But I get that feeling when you see like anything, dust bowl kind of pictures of a old small town Main Street that's been eliminated. I'm sure we're going to see lots of pictures of communities and businesses that have gone out of business en masse over the past year. Or you look at old Russian cities that have been abandoned. I've always been fascinated by abandoned cities, and so it's really it is unsettling. Absolutely.
Yeah. It was. I mean, it was one of those. I just remember pausing on that particular scene and just being like, "There's something really unnerving about it."
Yeah.
And it's such a simple thing at the same time. And like, I see destruction of stuff all the time, of buildings getting torn down and land being changed. It's just like you don't really think about it, but to see on like that level, it was interesting. I mean, that's one of the scenes that really kind of stood out to me. And then the other one was it was brief, and I think it's like Clementine falls into, I think a
River. Yeah.
river or the lake or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and you discover the world underneath. That was the other one. I was just like, oh, okay, there's a whole other story that hasn't been told about this.
Yeah.
So for like that in particular, was that something you told? It's Piotr, right? Piotr Kowalski.
Piotr. Yeah, and Piotr Kowalski is the artist on this, who's just incredible artist. I mean, he loves detail. His lines are great. The characters are great, and he had worked with Brad Simpson on Bloodborne, and they've worked on several other things. Brad Simpson's one of the best colorists of the year, and they were perfect for this. They captured. I knew that it needed to be someone who could really capture these detailed, cities and vistas, and they really nailed it. So yeah, absolutely, I would tell them, here's what it is. Sometimes I'd even share a photo reference, Clementine runs into a city that's being terraformed, and you see kind of the nature's reclaiming the city, and I said, here's kind of some ideas that I found on the internet, that I said, this is the vibe. And they nailed it. It's just, yeah.
How did they come on the series?
Say again?
How did they come onto the series?
I saw their stuff on Bloodborne. That was it. And I just was wowed. And I had pitched the project to AfterShock as my follow-up to the Lost City Explorers. AfterShock loved it. And we actually started in on Lost City, and then we went looking for an artist we were looking for a long time, but it was really tricky because this was someone that had to have both sci-fi and Western, and someone that could capture the character drama. And I saw Peter's stuff and loved it. I reached out, and he was available, which is just kind of, in comics, it's so much to do with timing, in terms of finding that person that you want, and then they happen to be available. So they came on, and then we dove right in, designing the characters and creating the world, and it was a blast. Yeah.
With the so it's interesting is like the comics got a lot of, I mean, it's a clash of times, right? Like you've got this far tech and then this throwback Western with
Yeah.
Colts and all that. Was there, I mean, were there times you kind of ran into of like, hey, you know, we can't make it too high tech that like there was like a clash of like, no, like you're going too extreme with some of the designs and that it almost takes you out of the Western a bit?
Preempted a lot of that. I mean, we talked a lot about what the look of the weapons were, and we didn't want anything steampunk. We wanted to stay away from steampunk. We wanted to stay away from, we wanted the guns, like, so designing a sci-fi weapon for this world. It had to be sleek. It had to be dark colored so that it was realistic. But then the way that we chose to show that it was futuristic was with kind of glowing chambers.
Yeah.
So you see the glowing ion or plasma or whatever is in there. But it felt more grounded that way because the casing is still black or gray. And so touches like that, or thinking about, well, yes, they have an energy shield, but it's a very classic energy shield. It reacts when something hits it, or jetpacks. I mean, but the jetpack looks a little mechanical. So we tried to find a way to make it feel like we didn't want to go into too much detail about the technology. We just wanted to show you the technology, but we wanted to make it feel a little more grounded and not so fantastical or out there.
I mean, it works because like you could do this fancy sci-fi tech and it almost comes off alien-like and would take you out of the story. So I mean, it was a tricky balance, I would think, to some extent.
Yeah, and I mean, even designing the city, like I remember when it's all comics usually do the first page first, so the first page of this is the whole comic opens with this kind of like promo of how wonderful it would be to live in the city. I almost imagine it like a Delta video, hello and welcome to the airlines. We're going to take you on a wonderful trip, and they're showing off the city. So, Peter and I are right off the bat saying, well, what does the city look like? There are so many different ways to design a futuristic city, and it had to look utopian. So we're like, okay, well, we're not going dark, we're going bright and effervescent, and there are spires that go up, but it also can't look so crazy. So we didn't want a lot of color. We wanted, blues and greens, lots of natural greens, but I almost looked at like photos out of like modern cities in Japan, like clean, we wanted clean utopia. So we talk a lot about that kind of aesthetic and trying to capture so that it feels like an extension of our today and not like a reinvention. We didn't want people to feel like it was fantasy. We wanted people to feel like it was just
I kind of got with the city that's shown on the cover, I got almost like an Oz vibe about it. Like it really does feel it has this like Wizard of Oz, Emerald City thing going on.
It glows a little. It's got a little kind of glow. It's got kind of a shimmer. Yeah, and then I mean, especially whenever you see the city in the distance, it's very mirage-like, almost like we get this promo where we get to see what people are doing inside the city. But then, for so much of it, you're just seeing it at a distance. You can't see that city. It almost feels out of reach. And that was, it's always looming in the background, but we don't know what it really is, even though we saw it.
With the so I mean, we kind of opened up. We talked about some of the themes of the comic to start. Like when you were creating the series and when you're kind of going through the details, how much of that sort of thing is on your mind while you're writing? And there's like one or two scenes I specifically want to dive into that feel very thematic to it.
I mean, a lot. I also like to outline as much as I possibly can for the whole series before I write, because I want the themes to be kind of present. I mean, invariably, anytime you're writing something, you make changes and things change as you go. But I try very much to say, this is a story about, here's what Clementine wants, here's this internal drama, here's how it's represented, here's the characters that are, representing these different ideals. I mean, her father represents one set of ideals, and the mentor that she meets represents a completely different set of ideals. In fact, he's arguing in a way for embracing the cities. He says, if you want to get revenge, gear up. If you want to protect your community, grab a fancy gun and get the jump on these guys. So that's a survival of the fittest, which is kind of what the city believes. So yeah, I like to think a lot about the different themes throughout the whole thing.
So the big one that I was thinking of is the scene with Clementine figuring out what gun to go to, and she kind of is going through all the variations of it. And it's to me, that was like that's one of the key segments of like the entire series and what's kind of spins out of that, and that almost feels like, that's her choice between red pill or blue pill moment. Like, right? Like, is she going to embrace technology and use that to crush these people? Is she going to stick to her traditional ways? Like, what way is this going to go? And the whole time I was like, no, stick with the cult, because it feels like if you use technology, like you're embracing it some way and betraying what your beliefs are and all that. Like, it's got to be something big. Judging by your reaction, I'm guessing this was all on purpose.
Absolutely. And I actually saw so many people online get angry that she was going, like when they were reading it as it was coming out, they were getting angry that she was choosing the revolver. They're like, you're going to get creamed, But she just had her whole community attacked, and she's lost her whole way of life because of technology. And her father has made her promise not to use it. And so now she finds herself wanting to get revenge and fight for her community and fight for her town. But she knows that she can't use that stuff. And then here you have this mentor character, the traitor, who she respects, saying, which sci-fi weapon do you want to use? And she is trying to resist using any of them. So I really love that kind of existential, because she has two wants. She has two objectives. She wants both revenge for her community, and then she wants to protect her ideas. And these things are at odds with each other. And so that's actually where you get the real drama, more so than just will she be able to prevail and how will she prevail. It's funny that you bring up Matrix, though, because I always thought of the climax, without giving too much away, as a very Matrix kind of conclusion, because you don't know how Neo will finally, win the day, and he finds a way, and you don't know how she will win the day. Is she going to have to use technology? What is she going to have to do? And so I had a lot of fun writing the end and the way she finds victory her way, So I don't want to spoil too much, but
Yeah, we're gonna try to do your best to stick away from spoilers. But yeah, like the example was, and I was thinking kind of through and coming up with questions with you. I'm just like, this would be the difference if from her using the horse that she has to get around, than her finding like a motorcycle or a car. Like her using the car or motorcycle would feel like a betrayal of her beliefs. The fact that she was using a horse really kind of sticks to things, and it looked like she had opportunity to do, get other modes of travel at various times. Like there was hints of stuff being around there, but like she stuck to her guns and like stuck to her traditional way. Like I think it adds a lot to the series and to the character herself, especially someone so young and being idealistic.
Yeah, it's a little surprising. You almost think someone young would fall victim to embracing these ways, but she really tries to stay true to her ideals and say no to any technology, not just the weapon. Yeah, the ride. Even at the end, the way she chooses to the final confrontation, it's all about this dilemma.
So I'm trying not to. I don't want to spoil the ending or where things go with the story, but like, westerns tend to be very depressing when it gets to the end. When you were writing it, like, were you thinking through like at any point, how do I want to shake things up from that kind of traditional? Do I want to did you want to maybe do some like fake out? Like I don't want to spoil the end. And I'm going to say, like, the ending it's not necessarily uplifting. And it's also maybe not satisfying for a lot of people, like the way it's ended either. But that's also very Western to me, right? Like that's a lot of the films, like Logan died at the end. It was a depressing ending. Like, yeah, he won the day, but dude is dead. But
you don't always win everything you think you're gonna win. You can't always get what you want, but sometimes you get what you need, right? And so I think that she has a she has some wins at the end that we feel very satisfied by, but perhaps not all the wins that we expect. I think that it was important. I like all westerns, and some westerns are tragic, but I feel like the best westerns give us some sense of hope or some sense of right versus wrong, or good can triumph, even if it's a little too late, or even if it's in a way that you don't expect.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Is there any like that? Was there any that influenced you doing this?
Of westerns,
Yeah.
I mean, Good, the Bad, and the Ugly a lot. I watched a lot early on, but a lot of the spaghetti westerns more for style. Unforgiven was kind of a redemption story, but I liked that character a lot for influences of the mentor character.
Yeah.
Um, you know, um, Once Upon a Time in the West, again for the spaghetti western kind of influences. Um, a lot of the westerns I found that were about the ranchers coming through were very, very familiar looking back on them, and so it's,
Yeah.
but yeah, I watched a lot more for mood than for plot.
It seems like the structure of the story took a lot from those two, right? Like
Yeah.
the conflict, find a mentor, train, big end conflict with the showdown. Like, I mean, that's a western to me. Like, most westerns follow that formula.
I mean, for me, you break the mold one way or the other. You either take a very simple story and you break the world and the backdrop to be something new that we haven't seen before. For me, I have not seen a Western done in a sci-fi futurist landscape like this. So that was where my appetite was. But to me, because I want to explore this world, for me as a writer, I want a clean, simple story that I can hang everything on. Or if if the opposite, you want to take something, then like Memento or whatever, then you can break the whole story and mess around with that. But that's grounded in a very classic kind of thriller world. So for me, for me, I tend to not want to break everything. So that to me,
I think I said that in a review too. Like I mentioned that I was just like, it takes the traditional and breaks it by the setting. But if you took that, broke the setting, plus broke the expectation of a Western it probably wouldn't have worked as well.
I feel that way. I feel that it works better to just have this clean story that we kind of go, I've seen this story before, but then if you were to say to someone, okay, where have you seen it? We can't figure out for the life of us. I mean, that's the funny thing. Some of these plots, like the civilization entity coming in and telling the independent entity you've got to move. We've seen this so many times, perhaps in so many different TV episodes. Maybe it was a Star Trek episode or this or that, but no one has done it so much that they own it. You know what I mean? It's not like a Groundhog's Day where like Groundhog's Day owns you wake up every day, and anybody who does you wake up every day and life is repeating itself is using Groundhog's Day model. This model, I can't think of if you're out there and you're watching, let me know if you go, this is the completely indicative plot line of this story and everybody else is derivative, but I can't think of it. And so to me, it's just a common story about the sheltered protagonist who has lived their life one way and then has something come in and change the way they think about life, and they have to decide, are they going to hold true to their values or give it all up?
I mean, throw in the developer coming to destroy stuff, and you're describing a lot of 80s films. I mean, Breaking 2 is what you're describing.
That's true. They did it there too, right?
Breaking 2 is a Western. You hear it here first. Like we just proved Breaking 2 is a Western.
Or the Country Club. The Country Club was always coming in, right?
So yeah, obviously the way it's ended, like there's clearly more that could happen in the world. Like, how much do you have beyond what you've done, kind of sketched out?
I mean, it was I pitched it initially as a mini series, and it was really just going to be this contained thing. And issue one, did very, very well. And then, of course, the issue one came out in March, right when the pandemic was
Yeah.
exploding. So it kind of turned everything upside down for us. We waited 2 or 3 months to release issue two. And then we're also finding ourselves, taking a bit of a pause here before the graphic novel is now coming out in January of 2021.
Yeah.
So, we have certainly, myself, the creative team, AfterShock, we've all kind of noticed the fan base's reaction to this and the appetite for more. And it's certainly not ruled out. I think we're just waiting to take a beat on it. In terms of where I would like to go take the story, yeah, I absolutely know where I would take the next arc, and it would absolutely involve experiencing the city a bit more. Yeah, and obviously it would absolutely stay with Clementine. She's just such a fascinating character, and I think that this dilemma of her place in the world and her values versus the future and the tug of that, there's so much more story to tell. So for me, I would definitely want to do more with Clementine. But we'll see. If you're out there and you love the series, or you're gonna pick up the graphic novel, support the book and let us know that you're digging it. The more we hear enthusiasm for more, will influence the decision.
Is there? I mean, we talked about before. It's like you took a traditional genre that we knew, put it in a new setting. Is there any other genres that you would like to do that with?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things to do. I mean, I can't really give too much away, but I am doing that right now on one project that has not even been announced or anything yet, with the heist genre, and trying to take a heist and turn that upside down in the same way This Is Western Revenge, to do something like that with the heist. I think in general, that's one of my, Port of Earth was an alien arrival story, but what if they come in business instead of a war? Eclipse was, a classic film noir detective story, and important people who are up to no good need him to protect their daughter. But instead of doing a classic noir world, let's do Sun is Deadly and Day is Night and flip it. So I really enjoy kind of taking classic structure stories that you kind of recognize and then flipping them on their head. That's one of my more favorite things to do.
What's something that, like, what kind of draws you to do that sort of thing? Because I've noticed that's throughout your work, is you do take traditional stuff and flip it a little bit here and there. What, to me, what's the draw of it?
Why do I like doing that?
Yeah.
Put me on the couch, Brad. I don't know. I like telling stories that are thought-provoking. I like telling stories that I feel are new, and I don't think anything can feel too new. But I like a concept that makes somebody go, "Oh." Those are my favorite concepts. If Homesick Pilots is coming out this week.
Yep.
And it's, punk bands, but meets haunted house. And I go, and I think maybe a little mech robots. And then I go, that's a cool combination of elements to me. I haven't seen that. And that always gets my interest. So I just think it's my desire to read or make new stuff and make new worlds. And I find that I can be more inventive in the world building if I have something that you hear the simple story and the simple character story, and you inherently go, I get this. I know what this is. I'm interested. I'm attracted to this. I find that we respond actually better when it's easily, we're able to understand it easy. I don't like to make, if the world's going to be a slow onion of complexity. I feel like it's so much easier just to get a character and say, I know who this is, and I know what they're going through, and I connect to it.
There's something that's advantageous as a going to readers too that way, right? Like they can go in familiar and they don't really have to play detective and put all these pieces together. Like if you can recognize 90% of it and be like, oh, okay, these things are familiar. I understand this, this, and this. Then it's that 10% that can really stand out and say, oh, this is something new and different. Like, I forgot a lot of stuff I've been reading lately. I've noticed I was like, it takes very familiar elements and twists a little bit. Like there's one series where I was just like, this is Die Hard in a Gremlins town, like
Sure.
Very familiar. I get it, and I can focus on the action. I can focus on the elements of it, as opposed to like, all right, who's this character and who's that character and all that. Like it feels as a reader, it's easier to get into and just enjoy the story.
I mean, those are my favorite. And I also, something I learned way back when was that no idea is cliche, only execution can be cliche. And so you can hear any idea and you can put it in the hands of different creators, and one creator will do it in a very cliche way, and it'll feel very formulaic, and you'll say, this is Die Hard in a small town, but with but I knew every time something was coming. There were no surprises. The characters did exactly what I thought they were going to do. And no, it wasn't surprising to me. I think you get surprises not when creators or writers are withholding information from readers, but when they make a reader believe that there are two possibilities that could totally happen, and you don't know which one it's going to be. And you're like, oh God, is she going to do this thing or that thing? She could do both, and you don't know. And then she does the other one. And you're like, I knew that could happen, but I'm still surprised because I still thought she could have done the other thing too. They were both so plausible. So I feel that to me, surprises are so important when it comes to writing, but I don't like to surprise people with kind of like, oh, I knew information that you didn't know. I just think it's the best character stories are surprises. So that's kind of where
Yeah, I actually think that's a kind of a great place to kind of start wrapping things up. Because I also had you for a while now. This comes out in January, the collection of it. We'll have people, info underneath where people can how to order, where to go, stuff like that. What else do you have coming up that you can plug, if anything?
I can't tell right now. I had a lot of things in the fire, and 2020 has just decided that a lot of that has to be pushed to 2021. Yeah. So I'm busy, and I got a lot of exciting things coming, but not so close that I can talk about them yet. So
I got to try to get the scoops. I got to do that.
I appreciate it. No, I mean, I'm very excited about next year. Lots of cool stuff, but nothing that is ready to talk about yet. But for everyone out there, please pre-order Join the Future. You only have until next Monday, the maybe 12th or 14th. Next Monday is the pre-order day, and especially with the holiday season, it really helps the shops. It helps everybody. So if you like the book and you want to get it, don't wait to pick it up off the shelf. Put your pre-order in.
And I appreciate you chatting. It's a really great series, and I enjoyed it and can't wait to check out the trade. And
thank you, Brett. I love your reviews. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the kind words. So we'll definitely talk again in the next whenever next projects are up.
You bet. Yeah.
Hey, thanks for watching the previous video from Graphic Policy Television. Just by watching, you help support our site. Thank you so much. Now, if you're watching these videos, you probably care about geeky things like movies, television, comic books, toys, games, video games, you name it. You can go and subscribe right now to our YouTube channel to stay in touch and catch all the new videos, or check out our website at graphicpolicy.com. There's a nice link on this end of the video. But as always, thank you for watching. Keep on rocking and keep it geeky.